Content warning for this episode includes possible inclusion of a stressful coming out, misgendering, and possible description of episodes of psychosis with religious themes. Welcome to Gender Meowster Podcast Network. Genderful is a talk show featuring non-binary and trans folks discussing various topics and special interests. We kindly remind our listeners that no person is a monolith of identities. All opinions are the speaker's own. This show airs live on Twitch at twitch.tv/gendermeowster, and VODs with show notes can also be found on YouTube.
Uses Faye Fair, may join us, but maybe not. But other relevant people are Michelle, who's a cis man who uses he, him. And it's Michelle, like the French name, not Michelle, like the girl's name. Aura, who's non-binary and uses she or it. Helen, who is a cis woman, she or her. And then Mimi, who is a demi-boy, he, him. So, yeah.
Woo!
Got a lot of people to cover. Oh, and I guess a sort of a small thing. It's pretty common for people in plural systems to refer to each other as headmates, but we don't do that. We don't like headmate as a term for us. We just say like people in the system or member of the system, just as a thing.
Cool. Member of the system, not headmate. Got it. Yeah, awesome. I'm so glad you're here, Maddy and friends. Maddy et al. Yeah, it's such a delight to have you here on the show. So just as a heads up for folks listening to this, if you haven't heard any of our other content on plurality, we've already done 4 talk show episodes on it. So I'm gonna invite Maddy to offer us, or maybe Maddy and all of the system members, to give their collective definitions of what plurality is. But if you want to go on a deep dive on just what even is plurality, there's 4 other episodes you can go watch, including one that Juliet wrote that Maddy presented that was great, and it was more like a TED Talk than an interview, which is not a criticism. It's just it was cool. There was so much information that I was just like, please just tell us all the things. So if you want that sort of info dump in that direction, that content already exists. Just look at some of the previous episodes with the word plurality in the title. So, Maddy, can you share with us a bit about how would you define what plurality is?
It's multiple people sharing the same body. The reason why headmate is a popular term is that a really good analogy is just like a bunch of roommates. And so it's like, if you knock on the door, one roommate will answer, you can talk to them. Other times, there'll be multiple roommates who answer, that sort of thing. So it's just the front door is the outside world, and we're all living in here, minding our own business until someone knocks and we have to go talk to them.
Gotcha. Is that all the answers?
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple concept, right?
Yeah.
It's just people, it's just hard to, conceptualize it as happening as opposed to what it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next question I have for you is, what's been part of your transition journey so far? What's your story with that? I know it's been a winding path, I think.
Yeah, it has. So to focus more on like the physical transition stuff. So Aura came out to her parents as trans when it was like 16 years old, to mixed success. It was taken as like a sure, but we'll see kind of situation. Then when we were 18, Aura started testosterone because it went to school and its parents weren't around anymore. So it started testosterone at school, but then we dropped out, and so we lost access to HRT that way, that doctor, and trying to fix that and go back on T was slow and inconsistent. And it still kind of persists to this day. Over the past, decade or whatever, we've been on and off T about 4 times and have never been on it longer than like a year and a half. Not on it currently. in 2014. Aura had top surgery in 2019. We had a full hysterectomy, um, and we're on their way currently. We're working on doing electrolysis. Actually, had our first session today, another one tomorrow. And part of the reason why we're getting electrolysis is to prepare for phalloplasty. So that's on the radar. And then for like socially transitioning, Aura came out as trans mask, and sort of that's the line we've been going by ever since. We changed our name in 2013, but that name has no relevance to any of us anymore. So it's just sort of it's just another another dead name in a sense. Um, so we have a nickname that we go by, which is more gender neutral. Um, at work, I would consider us a stealth trans mask in theory, but it's more like if I'm on a call with a customer and they use whatever pronouns for me, great. So that's fine. And lately out in public, we've been wearing more feminist stuff, and we've been sort of read as a woman more often. So that's the social transition stuff.
Gender is a many splendored thing. Okay. Gosh, I'm trying to triage all the questions in my mind at the same time. So many good things to talk about. Okay, I'll ask a question that I like to ask my guests, which is, what are the things that you traced back to your youth that indicated you might be trans one day?
So some of that's hard because not all of us existed back when we were children.
Totally.
so so it's like if we're going with Aura, who's been here the longest. I mean, Aura was just very like autistic tomboy. So like no makeup because not only was it like girly, but also because it hurt our face, and dresses for similar reasons. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's nothing indicating the phenomenon that's happened since the initial "I'm trans" mask, so that has no explanation. But the main part of it is also just like, and I think that it's kind of true, but it's like my parents were like, you're just following the crowd, you're hanging out with all these people, and so obviously you pick up some of their identities, like that's how that works. But like, hey, maybe they were right, which is totally chill and cool, and I don't know, just naturally gravitating towards the gender people, like, which is the cause and the effect in that situation. But yeah.
So I imagine instead of asking how's your gender evolved over time, I think the next like 6 questions may get into that. So instead of asking a big, broad, vague question, I'll ask, how do you present your gender to the external world?
So to most people, just in general, who like know us, we are a kind of effeminate trans mask person. We have the legal name that we have now, but then our gender neutral main name, we use he him pronouns. Um, don't It's really just don't want to bother going through the effort of trying to teach someone how to use other pronouns again, and other reasons. But then to like our best friend IRL and our husband, we can be our own genders. So that's helpful. Like we each have different clothes and what we find comfortable. So it's presenting gender the way anyone else might. But like to randos on the street, well, whatever they want to read us as is fine. We've been wearing a lot of dresses lately, so usually that tends towards being read as a woman. But recently, I went to the movies, and there was the bathroom, and the family restroom was taken. So I was approaching the gendered bathrooms with trepidation, trying to figure out which one I should go into, and a person left the women's bathroom, and I was like, okay, perfect. I'll just go into that one because that's when the door is open. But then the men's bathroom, also the door opened, and they both held the door open for me. And I was like, you guys go ahead. I'll figure it out.
Today.
I just was like, I don't know which gender is gonna like get me like weird looks. Like I
So
had bad
relatable.
popcorn to eat, so I hadn't had time to fuss.
I also love popcorn.
Bad popcorn. I don't know what it is about that theater. It's bad popcorn.
Y'all go ahead. I'll figure it out.
There's like no one at that theater. It was fun.
Oh, goodness. That's so relatable. Um, Okay, so are you out as plural and are you out as trans? Or perhaps more specifically, in what spaces do you feel comfortable being out as plural and out as trans?
The internet has to be undated with our plurality. It's just the easiest, There are bots out there like Pluralkit, which make Discord so much easier. But even then, like, we found ways to do it on Twitch with that cool capitalization system that you came up with, which is just that my Twitch name is both Julia and Maddy, and depending on which one is capitalized, that's who's present. So, sort of thing. One day we're going to show up with no capitalization, though. You're not going to know what to do. Um, but so them, and then also to our best friend in real life, and to our husband, who is also plural. So that
Mm-hmm.
helps. Um, that's it in terms of the plurality portion. Uh, in general, it's just online, and then those folks. In terms of trans, pretty much everyone in my family vicinity, anyone who's not work knows. And it's been it's been so long that they can't avoid it at this point. Like, I feel like if you were gonna like really try hard to like misgender us and all that, you'd probably have given up after the first 5 or 6 years. So at this point, why go to all that effort? And then at work, we just don't fuss with like being out as trans. Sometimes we'll like put a they them in our signature or whatever, but it's super whatever. Like, and I for me, I'm totally fine with keeping my work life completely separate from my personal life. So I'm fine with that.
So it's constant navigation as a trans person. Um, and then you throw in the plurality aspect, and it's like exponentially more complex because there's like code switching and all of that, like personally as a gender, and then also as genders, and who is it, and oh gosh, yes, all the things. Um, all right, so what's one thing that singlets or non systems can do to make more room for plural folks in their gender stuff and or vice versa?
So sort of the easiest thing that can be done is to just like what plurality is and to believe people when they say they're plural. Um, we're plural in a different way than a lot of other people are. Um, we don't have a dissociative disorder, um, so we say plural and multiple, that sort of thing. Um, we don't dissociate like that. So believing that we exist, and even if like you think that we're mistaken somehow in our identity and that we're formulating that concept incorrectly, keep it to yourself in some respects. Like, it doesn't matter for, you're not going to change me by being like, you're wrong, because what am I going to do? I think it's right. So that's fine. So just like accepting people would be good. Um, but then sort of to talk about like with the code switching thing, like there there's a difference. So it's like if I introduce myself as Maddy, and then later on Juliet introduces Fairself as Juliet, then that's two people with two different genders.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it was like I'm Maddy, but then I later on say that my name is Juliet, then that would mean there are two Juliets, and my gender has whatever switched to. So that's two people each. It's there's lots of things you can do. If like I was gender fluid and had multiple genders with different names and pronouns, that would still be one person. It wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily be the same thing as having two separate system members of different genders. So
Do you have any system members that are gender fluid just to make it even more fun and complicated?
we used to, not so much anymore,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, again, it's confusing because there was some gender fluidity, but then the gender fluidity did split in half, and now there are two different people. So whatever.
Yeah. Do you um do any of your system members pretend they're other system members for the lols?
Of course. Why wouldn't you? If you had that option. But like, I mean, one of our system members is 13 and he can get away with a lot. for being 13, but having the
Uh-huh.
ability to walk through life as a late 20s person.
And like
So,
have a credit card or a debit
yeah,
card.
the cell phone is not a problem, but the amount of money that's been spent on like it's he knows how to use PayPal. So,
You have
yeah,
to take the PayPal away from the 13-year-old.
I
I know that it's inconvenient and I'm genuinely delighted.
I know. It's like, yeah, we'll check the grocery list and it's like, someone wanted Doritos and Pop Tarts and Capri Suns. And I don't know who else might.
Kuvia in the chat is saying your Steve library suddenly has 40 more games.
He's not a video game person, thank God. Only certain avenues,
Hmm.
there's a lot of those pet sites like Flight Rising. You have very, very beautiful dragons spent with far too much money.
Oh
Whew.
gosh, all the in-game currency. You just got to
Yeah.
write them and say, my 13-year-old got a hold of this. They don't have to know it's your inner 13-year-old, not your son. Oh, my face hurts from smiling so hard. Um, I totally know it's inconvenient and it's relatable. Um, okay, so do y'all as a system agree on the singlet sona gender self? Does that bother anyone?
Mm. At this point, the trans mask thing does not. It's way more limiting than it is like you know shorthand. Um, like it just kind of it sucks in like some inconvenient ways where it's like if I'm at work, if I'm wearing like you know a dress or something, it's like I have to take a phone call. I have to take off my dress and put on some boy shirt to be in the video call. I have like two of them. I'm waiting for someone to notice that I only wear two shirts in video call. But it's just, yeah, it's just frustrating. It would be nice to just, I mean, I'm out most of the time and my pronouns are exclusively she, her. And anyone who has he, him pronouns is not around all that often. So that kind of blows. But then, like, there is a reason for it. So it's just that, um, like, we're interested in getting fallow and stuff. And if they encounter us and from their perspective we look like we're detransitioning, then they're gonna be like, no, no, you're not worth paying that money for insurance wise. So for now, keep it up from like you know, I promise I'm a real trans doctor sort of perspective, but everywhere else it sucks.
Mm-hmm. So you have to somehow present in this conforming trans mask way, even though the gender is even more genders are even more complicated and deep. It's hard enough to just be non-binary in a medical industry that sees gender as binary. I can't even imagine being plural on top of all of that. I'm just going to take a deep
Yeah,
breath about that. That's my
yeah,
response.
yeah. The dysphoria and the perceived gender thing are completely at odds with each other. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's a lot easier to uh, pretend on the identity thing, at least until it's done. Like the second that it's over, sorry, we have to change pronouns all of a sudden now. I got what I needed, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna have to deal now. But until then, and like, cause even like, I mean, part of the fellow thing is actually I'm one of the more dysphoric people, so it's part of my compromise in particular is like, yeah, well, you see him pronouns out in the world, but it's only because I want Phalloplasty very badly, and so I need to get it however I can.
Yeah. So, Maddie, in your ideal like future as a gender diverse person, um, do you have an image of what your like physical configuration would be and your pronouns would be? And do you feel comfortable sharing that with us?
Yeah, I mean, I want fallow, so I will have a phallus. That's one thing. Don't have much of anything else. I don't have there's a full hysterectomy. Um, I had double mastectomy. So basically everything exactly as it is now, plus the phallus would be great.
And she, her pronouns.
Yes, and she, her pronouns. And I'm not currently on any sort of hormone replacement therapy. I
Mm-hmm.
have like negative hormones because I've got nothing in me. I have no replacements. So
You're
that's fun.
you're like you're like in menopause,
Yeah.
beyond menopause.
Yes.
You've reached the treasured post hormone status of the hormones have stopped hecking with my brain.
Yeah. And like it's not great for other reasons. Like I have to like watch like my bone health and stuff because of
Mhm.
reasons. But like it would be so much work to do like I don't want to have to inject myself. It's boring and difficult. And I don't want to have to take like estrogen either because it's boring and I don't want to.
Mhm.
So I'm just chill with nothing. It's fine.
Yeah. Um so if I we were having a conversation the other day about how you're like working towards having hair removal in two different locations of your body for two different people's gender. Do you feel comfortable sharing about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So I mean, it's actually so we have facial hair. And again, half of it's just convenience. Shaving every day isn't fun, so I don't want to do it. So I'd rather just have lasers remove it or hot needles remove it. Totally good. Um, and that's kind of for everyone. One of us has a mustache, but that's okay. He can just not have one. Then then I'm also getting my arms because I want phalloplasty, and so one of the techniques for it is to take um, some of the part of your arm, take that skin, roll it up, essentially. That's part of how you get a new phallus. But because it's rolled up skin, they don't want you to have hair in there because that could cause blockages and other really serious issues with a lengthened urethra. So they're like, you
Mm-hmm.
have to, and it takes, to get every single hair in that area, it takes a year. So I don't have any dates. I haven't no consultations or anything, but if that's something that I'm very serious in pursuing, which I am, might as well start now on that. Um, so that's
Mm-hmm.
that's basically it. But it looks like I'll probably be able to laser my face and I'll have to do electrolysis on my arms, which will be exciting because of the difference in how much area that is. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
yeah,
it my spouse had to go through laser and electrolysis for her bottom surgery, and it took like over a year because of it's either 3 or 6 week growth cycle of hair. I think it's 6 weeks.
yeah, 3 months.
It's
Yeah.
a long process. Like there is no instant bottom surgery. It takes over a year to prepare for usually. And if any trans person is like, I'm thinking about bottom surgery, I'm like, you need to start electrolysis and hair removal right now. Like even if everything else isn't figured out, it takes a long time.
And like yeah, it's also like if you're getting phalloplasty, generally a consultation might be good because there's three different parts of your body that they can take
Hmm.
um, depending on it's very extensive scarring. So
Yeah.
some people like don't want the visibility of it on their arm. Sometimes can also cause like musculoskeletal problems, just like because you've lost a chunk of your flesh. But they can also do it with your thigh and part of your back. So depending on where, you can't have hair on any of those places. But
Hmm.
for reasons that I know about myself, it'll definitely be my arm. So gotta
Gotcha.
do that.
Well, thank you for sharing so personally about that preparation experience. Um, yeah, it's really I've thought about some of these pieces myself, and I haven't come to any conclusions, but um, it's a whole journey for sure. These pieces. So I have one more question on the topic of interfacing with the external world, and then we have a question from the audience. If you could change your singlet sona gender, what would you change it to?
I guess we'd like if we're like starting out as we are now, then it would be fun to like transition. It's like a feminine non-binary feature uses she her pronouns and maybe some neutral pronouns just for fun. Um, but that comes with the risk of being seen as detransitioning,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that like Aura used to sort of identify with in the past, but now unfortunately it has a bit of a nasty flavor depending on what circles you might run into.
Mm-hmm.
So that particular term isn't ideal, and that idea that oh, you were actually mistaken or wrong or whatever, you're
Hmm.
actually going back to what you should have. And it's like, no, no, I'm girl 2.0. I've moved so far beyond original girl. I'm back at it again, level 2. But you guys are too cis to understand, and
Yeah.
that's you guys just haven't leveled up yet. You need more
Yeah.
XP. So that's
Customized girl mode.
yes, exactly. Radical girl mode.
I love
Free,
that so much.
free.
That's so great. Um, yeah, I love too sis to understand. Totally Butch Twink. Oh, and Rylan. Oh my gosh, everyone's saying too sis to understand. It's very funny. It's like a hashtag. Um, it reminds me of my spouse and I are both trans, and I'm not binary trans. I'm non-binary. Um, but I've been realizing over the last handful of months that as I continue my testosterone journey, I'm going to look more and more like a white man to people in the world, and they're going to start misgendering me as he him instead of she her. And so to other people, as my spouse and I continue along our transition path, we're going to look like a straight couple. It's so weird to me to imagine looking
Yep.
straight again, because it's like I spent a decade as a very obvious lesbian, and now I'm still sort of some lesbian pansexual flavor of something. I don't really know even anymore. Sexuality, shrug. That's where I'm
No,
at with that.
I'm I'm in the exact same boat, right? My husband's like doing stuff too, and I haven't been on T, but he's been on T for a couple of years now, and yeah, it's sort of a game to like see if they think that we're gay or straight, depending on me at this point now. It used to be kind of anyone's guess how it was going to be interpreted, but
Yeah.
it's weird being seen as straight, and that's why you have to again, that's girl 2.0. You have to
Hmm.
go out of your way to let people know that they're wrong. You're not straight. Be careful. Don't
Yeah.
make assumptions.
It's like we're so gay, we're straight again. We just
Yes,
all the way around.
exactly.
We went all the way
Exactly.
back to where
It's
we
a
started, but
corkscrew, right?
also
So you're
not.
going
It absolutely is a spiral. Yeah.
because you're going up as well.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, we have a question from the chat. Mirami asks, are all the members of your system and your husband's system in relationship with each other? I imagine that can get quite complicated.
Um, yes, in the sense that I mean, any two people in the world will have relationships with each other. Like whether it's friends or acquaintances or colleagues or married or what have you. There are definitely relationships, like there's romantic relationships between some of us and some of him, and there are friendships and there are acknowledgments, like you're there, I'm here, hi. Um, but like our 13-year-old isn't in a relationship with anyone. He's just
Mm-hmm.
there. Sometimes he's babysat, but you know, that's so no one it's not necessarily like a one-to-one like romantic relationship thing. Like I don't have like a corresponding person in his
Mm-hmm.
system, that sort of thing. But it's
Uh,
like yeah, it's like if your next door neighbor, right? Some of you will be friends, some of you won't. Just
uh-huh.
gotta knock and see.
We have follow-up questions in the Twitch chat. Are there any rivalry or tensions? And if this is too much to share on a stream, you can say pass, and that's fine.
Like intra, like inside, or inter between like me and my partner system.
I think I think I think folks were asking about the latter, but I imagine both are interesting answers.
I don't think there's any rivalries between systems. Internally, there have been really bad rivalries that have since quieted down extensively, but there was some pretty intense animosity, which, yeah, is gone now. That's been a few years. But for a while, it was pretty bad. Now it's not. So,
I'm glad that it seems to have simmered down for now.
me too.
For those listening to the show later and can't see your outfit, would you take a moment to describe your really fabulous shirt to the rest of us?
It is a color blocked shirt. The main part is pink. One sleeve is green and blue and yellow. The other one is orange and blue and yellow. Pocket is blue. I got it from Moku Yubi. So if you are interested, they have really great, expensive clothes, but very cool colors and patterns. So highly would recommend.
We do not have a sponsor for the show. That was not an ad. I just think your shirt is wonderful.
I everyone thinks so, and it's because it's wonderful. And I got it from a friend because I was desperate to know where she got it, and then 4 or 5 people have also gotten shirts because of everyone should wear these shirts.
So good. All right. So now we're going to pivot and talk a bit about questions about internal gender things. So the first question I have is how have your individual genders gone and have they changed over time?
So it depends. So certain people have just had the same gender from start to finish. Martin slash Michelle slash Mimi is like one. They're all the same person. It's confusing, but their gender is pretty specifically like man, he, him type stuff. Um, Mimi deviates slightly, but has always been consistent in that respect. Um, then Helen is unwaveringly, a woman, no doubts, no whatever. Then some people go through a series of gender crises over and over in the most melodramatic way possible, and a truly delightful series of events. We had someone enter our system with just a bang. It was a weird introduction, but when like he arrived, he was like kind of like a feminine man, like kind of straddling the idea of like playing with gender, um, but wasn't actually like going to go all the way and do anything about it necessarily. But then that got to be too much, and then um, he sort of decided that bi-gender was a more accurate term, and sort of got that like you know femme woman thing, and then man thing, and for a while it was sort of a fluid, and then it was happening simultaneously, girl and woman and man at the exact same time, no flip flopping at all, just same time. And that took a lot, a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a really long, arduous process. Some of it also has to do with some when this person arrived, they weren't they came from somewhere else, like a piece of media, and so they already arrived from like other writers and stuff from like they had an identity beforehand, and so a big part of changing it was like making that jump from sort of separating from the source material into his own person. But he used he/she pronouns for a while, um, but then really gravitated towards the she ones, and then it's kind of like bi gender, but like mostly a woman. Um, and then as more time went on, just kind of more womanly type stuff, some residual like non-binariness, but then from like uh, I don't know exactly how it happened, but then that gender sort of split along other things, um, became too great, and the two halves became Juliet and Maddy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's us. So we're the product of several gender crises in a row. So um, we have someone to thank for that, but that's just one example of how it can get confusing and a little weird in that respect. Um, some people like change once or twice, what have
Mm-hmm.
you, but then there's me who exists because of a series of gender crises.
Do you think there's
Whatever.
a way to ever know if you're fully cooked or is it just
No,
constant curiosity like what's going to happen next?
I really don't know. And like for like yeah, it's like Martin and Helen have it so freaking easy. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. I'm that's it. I arrived and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
But Juliet's had their own gender crises simultaneously elsewhere recently, but
Mm-hmm.
that's more mild, and that's just more exploring the neopronoun side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Um, do your internal selves ever have to come out to each other? The next question that I've written down is how do you handle the differences in internal gender identity? But I'm kind of curious about both, and I don't know if those are the same answer.
Um, there was an instance of coming out. Our predecessor um, had to actually sort of come out to like Martin, and um, part of that was so this is where we get into like the weird plural stuff that doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense. You thought it was good, you thought it was confusing now, but just you wait. um, Martin, if we're a house, right, if we're an apartment, whatever, Martin's got this hole out the side of the house, and he can just leave and go wherever he wants. He has his own life. He's got a wife and kids elsewhere. So he, goes, back and forth, and so he came in, and that's when we sort of had to like let him know. And part of that was also a little bit complicated because like our predecessor and him, that's where a lot of that animosity was at the beginning. So it wasn't ever like uh, he was going to be bad about it or anything, but like the act of being quite vulnerable in front of, at the time, someone who hated him pretty bad, that was
Mm-hmm.
a little bit tough. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that cooled down, the gender stuff continued, and it's not like it was never an instance of like wondering what this man in our head might think. It was
Mm-hmm.
more like just trying to navigate the potential difficulties of, you know, just sort of that whole process, just
Mm-hmm.
reintroducing two people to each other, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's the
It's
only time.
like, hey, person, there's been some changes since you were here last. We need to talk about it.
Yep, exactly. So
Um, are there any other ways that you've handled the differences in internal gender identity that you feel like sharing?
we use writing a lot to do things. It's very easy to make like a self-insert character and then just like throw them into whatever kind of gender situations you want. Animal Crossing is a great one for that.
Mm.
Just anything where you can make a character and wander around. That's that's good. Um, I forget what else I was going to say on that, but
Okay. If it's important, it'll come back.
yeah,
That's how I feel about when I
maybe.
forget things. Do you
Hasn't
want
quite
me
been my experience, but
do you want me to ask the question again in like 10 minutes
yeah,
later?
that'd be great.
Okay, I'll highlight it so I remember to circle back. Um so the next question I have for you and y'all is do any of you trigger each other's dysphoria? What do you do if you disagree about what to do?
So yes, again, the 50-year-old man really throws things off. So he has a mustache, and so sometimes when he like is at the front, he like wants to stroke his mustache, and it
Mm-hmm.
bothers the hell out of us because the rest of us not only do not have a mustache and it looks and feels silly, but also it's another like we really don't want one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's just a habit of his that you know is hard to break. He's off elsewhere. His wife doesn't yell at him for stroking his mustache, so you know it's not high on his priority list necessarily.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then some of it was also like sort of working out like what you can so how customizable something is after the fact. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
when we got top surgery, at the time there were people who were not for it. They were like, I don't like this idea. This is permanent. This is forever. Then the rest of us, others of us were like, but it's not necessarily permanent. And there are ways for you to like, you can still, you know, you can buy boobs. You can have them
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
they'd be, you could take them on and off. So that would solve everyone's problems. So we got to get the blank slate, and then we can customize afterwards depending on what you want to do. But
Yeah.
that was something.
So I have a follow-up question. What is the difference between um, having breast forms as an option and having a packer as an option versus actually having fallow?
Packing is hard, and I don't want to like. It's hard
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then, I mean, again, a lot of it's just convenience.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's really all what it boils down to.
Yeah. How does Martin feel about upcoming fallow plans?
It's fine. He's not very attached to the body, if that makes sense. Like, for him, it's just sort of like, this is what I wear when I'm here.
Yeah.
So,
It's like a
you know,
guest house. It's like vacation home.
this is his summer home. Yeah.
Yeah. The
So,
more that you talk about Martin, the more the chat and I collectively think Martin is a cat.
no, he's not a cat. He's a dog.
He's a dog. Oh, I think we've stumbled into some of the uh, inner system revelry.
There's no rivalry. He's just a dog. That's how it goes. Michelle is a fox. Mimi's a puppy. You know, dogs.
Okay.
And he's also a duck, so it's really quite variable.
So, I'll throw in a fun, silly question. What's today's gender?
For me, today's gender is clown. I was looking up clothing inspirations, and regular like rainbow stuff wasn't doing it for me. Even like I was
Yes.
looking at like Harajuku fashion. I'm like, this is something. But then no, the clowns are really the ones who have the best fashion. So it's a clown day today for
All,
sure.
all you're missing is the little red nose.
Exactly. I'm already like pasty and white and everything. So it's really just
I didn't expect that comment. That was funny. Oh my gosh. Okay. Next question is, what does it mean to be cis or trans internally?
so I was trying to come up with an easy way of explaining it. And I think kind of like, oh, like if you were to like just stop for a moment and think about what you look like and just sort of rotate that in your head, as it were, just kind of your body as, idealized or what have you, how you see yourself, then that's basically what it would be. Like if you're cis there, then you're cis, regardless of whether this external body matches. It's all
Mm-hmm.
about the internal sense of self. And
Right.
again, with Martin, it's like he's literally elsewhere. So like he's cis because in other places where he does have like his own body, he's cis. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that helps. But then for the
Yeah.
rest of us, it's like it's just I don't know. We can make it up. We can be wrong. Just do what we feel like.
Um, so, how do you collectively work to support the various gendered people in the system?
So for the most part, dysphoria the is the thing that is more important than most of the gender stuff combined. Um, so it's like whatever. Again, it's a lot of like if we're going for fallow, we have to present as some sort of transmask-esque person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but internally, like it's a lot of we respect each other's gender in a way that is just affirming, in a way that being out to your friends would be. You get to, and it's also like I know sometimes with some people like they want to try out pronouns, but like they don't necessarily have a lot of people in their life where they're going to be hearing themselves referred to in the third person, so they don't get to like hear those pronouns necessarily. But we can because we have multiple people in our heads either talking about us or to us, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's a little bit easier to like try on pronouns because there's literally people who are gossiping in your head about you, so they're going to use the right pronouns. It's very supportive.
So you mentioned a few moments ago that was it Martin's a dog, another one is a fox, another one is a
Michelle's a
puppy,
fox, and he's a puppy.
and so some of you are also ultra human, which adds yet another layer of complexity to this whole conversation. And if folks listening, you have no idea what that is, we've also done episodes on that. Go watch those. I think there's at least two of them around, including an interview that Spire's system suggested, actually. So very fun. Go check them out. But How does your relationship with gender relate to your alter humanity and that whole portal of existence?
So, um, the whole like dog thing is, less gender, just more of like what he is, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, it feels like he's a bit of a werewolf, but he's not. I joke constantly that he's just a regular human guy because that's all he is. Like if he were to play D&D, he'd be a human ranger, like the most generic regular human man possible. Um, but then like uh, Juliet's actually been exploring like kin feelings in relationship with like gender stuff. Um, that's why like fae fair is a pronoun that's sort of being tossed around, and also pix like pixie has been tossed around. So that's fun, just like as a good idea for where neopronouns can come from. Um, but then Aura's got uh, so this is where like the description of the psychosis thing might come in,
Okay.
just as like a warning
As
for
a
folks.
as a reminder of our content warning, um, descriptions of psychosis with religious themes.
Yep. So we had a particularly rough psychotic episode back in 2014, 2015. It was around then. Um, it was like we actually had top surgery like right in the middle of it, so that was a little odd. Um, but part of the sort of things that came up was a like Aura was being sort of consistently bombarded with the idea of like being a god or being like related to a god in a way that was like you know just very present in its life, and sort of like legendary Pokemon don't have gender, and so similarly, when being called to by a god, that sort of thing, the gender sort of got shook loose. Um, then some more stuff progressed away from like the god stuff directly into like demigod type stuff. I guess this is just like our brain sort of trying to wind down from being like, okay, you're not God. Let's go take you down slowly so that you don't crash all of a sudden. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she went to like a demigod sort of feeling, and that's when it really like a lot of things in its life for lots of other reasons clicked, and so its kin type is the Minotaur, um, Asterius. That's that creature, that person, that myth. And so the Minotaur is generally depicted as male. Usually it's a bull walking around, essentially the cool legs with like a manly chest and cool head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's sort of like that's part of where like Aura's intense dysphoria comes from. It's not just like a gender thing, but it's also like a literal like how it walks sort of thing and how heavy its head feels and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So um, part of part of like getting top surgery was to help alleviate that um,
Mm-hmm.
sort of itchiness, if that makes sense. And then um, that sort of developed further into like a more cozy like uh, minotaur gender, I guess. It was sort of divorced from like ideas of like man or woman. It was more just like this creature with certain parts because of for reasons. Um, and so we're gonna be that essentially. So that's a big part of where the alter humanity stuff comes in with that one. Just sort of a relationship from God to demigod to being like, wait, actually, hold up, that is actually me. I am actually a demigod. We're gonna stop here, and that's sort of gonna unlock kin and gender feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And Mimi's also a puppy, but Mimi is primarily a duck, often Daffy Duck. And ducks don't tend to have a very good concept of gender, which is kind of where the demi boy stuff comes in. Like when he's feeling much like a duck, he's not really feeling like a boy. So there's that. So I would say the biggest stuff.
The Twitch chat is really enjoying the things you're saying right now. They're learning a lot, which is so fun. Um, so as an invitation to the folks here who are watching and listening live, I have about 6 more questions personally to ask. So if you have anything you want to throw into the AMA pile of questions, you can post it in the Twitch chat or post it in the AMA channel in Discord, and the mods can hand us those questions. So I'm sort of giving you a reminder if you want to throw in your questions before the episode wraps up in about a handful of questions here. So, Maddy, my next question is, can you think of something that people might not think about when it comes to interacting with trans plural systems?
So I think part of it is the pronouns thing that I mentioned, especially if someone doesn't communicate in their head the same way that we do, because not everyone does. Um, but like if someone's trans and they're part of a plural system, then they just they might have even less opportunities to hear the name and the pronouns that they use referred to, because they might people might refer to the person who fronts the most or the person whose name is legally attached to the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if like a member of a system comes at you as trans or is like, hey, I'm like thinking about trying these names and pronouns, I would say probably like go extra out of your way to use them, because you might be literally the only person who's doing that for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I would say.
Next time I talk to Juliet, I'll be sure to use Fae Fair pronouns.
Yeah.
It's so fun. I love that so much. Okay, I'm going to circle back to the question that we skipped part of because we forgot things, and we'll see if we get another answer. How do you handle the differences in internal gender identity?
So I think what I was trying to say earlier is that we just sort of give each other space to explore that, and it's very much like my gender does not affect Juliet's gender.
Mm-hmm.
Like at this point now that we're separate people anyway, it doesn't. Um, so and like again, Martin's gender is his own thing. Um, so it's helpful to like be supportive in the same way that any roommates would be supportive. Internal differences are based entirely on what's comfortable for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it sucks to like be someone who feels antagonized in your own head by the other people who share your literal physical body. And
Mm-hmm.
so ultimately, just as we've grown up, it's just been like, let's just be nice to each other. That'll probably work out for the best.
So having allyship within the system, in addition to socially and externally.
Yep.
That's so awesome. I never thought about allyship within a system. Galaxy brain. What are some fun gender moments of euphoria that you've had, that y'all have had?
Trying to, there's something that would introduce a whole new concept of our plurality that I'm trying not to do. So just because it's more complicated. But an instance where it was like someone had very specific gender feelings that were related to its name. And to this day, none of us know why that person decided to name themselves um, Shunt, Shunt. Don't know why, but that's something that is like on like signs outside of buildings. Like it's something, it actually has a meaning. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's been little like gender moments when we've seen like that sign on the building that refers to some thing called a shunt. And it's like, yeah, that's me. Like that's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to have happen, but whatever makes you happy. Um, um,
What about Maddie? Have you had any euphoric experiences you want to share?
so so Juliet and I have different wardrobes. This actually comes from Juliet's wardrobe. Um, but so I guess that's part of it, when it's like we're able to pick an outfit for the day and it's like, this is my outfit. Like sometimes it's like you can have the socks or you can have the shirt, but I want the pants. Sometimes it's like, no, I get the whole outfit, and being able to like really luxuriate in wearing your clothes is kind of a weird thing, but it's nice when you don't have to share. That's the gender euphoria, not having to share.
It's like I got to dress the whole body today.
Exactly. Like you're a toddler and you get to pick out your outfit for the first time. That's what it feels like every time.
Does Juliet have any opinions about you borrowing Fair's shirt today?
No, because again, the two shirts that we had in mind were this one or my shirt, which is it has a picture of a possum in like red and just says torment across the top. So was that or same thing, another picture of a possum, only this time it's yellow and it says anguish. So
Did you design your possum shirts?
no, they come from this one Etsy store. The guy's amazing. He has a book about how to sell t-shirts online. He's that good.
Um, I have a non sequitur clarifying question. Anytime we see possum emojis on the Discord server, is that Maddie?
It's everyone. Possums
It's
are good.
everyone. All right, all right. I didn't know if
Possum.
possums were everyone's favorite or just a Maddie favorite.
It's actually a reference to like a character that we write, so it's all of ours. So yeah,
That's so fun. I love the hissing possum and the celebratory possum with the tail up in the air. They're so fun. All right. Let's see. What is a fun moment that you've had that's been very trans plural?
it's been very transferable. Um, so this doesn't exactly happen often, but it is kind of nice when it does. But it's like, again, a matter of convenience. It's like, what bathroom do we want to use? The one that has the shorter line.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll like, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll just use that one, and that'll be the decision we've made. But then there have been times where like we've used the bathroom with the shorter line, like we went in because it was just convenient, and we came out with the gender of the bathroom. So it's like, if I go into the men's room because it's short, sometimes Martin will be the one to come out because it's the men's room. That's kind of fun.
What came first, the bathroom or the gender identity?
Yeah, who knows? It's not him. He never comes when he's called.
Because he's a dog?
No, again, he's just a regular human guy. He has no excuse. And sometimes he's hanging out with his wife and kids, so he's got
Yeah,
some excuse sometimes.
busy. Busy
Yeah,
being a married dad.
yeah.
All right. I have another miscellaneous question for you. I sort of have already asked this, but maybe asking it again gives you an opportunity to answer it in a different way. What are your plans for the future regarding gender transitioning, etc.?
So yeah, we mentioned part of it is like getting fellow, getting electrolysis. That's most on our radar. We actually also have to get our name legally changed again because it's still like the bad name, not the gender neutral name. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we have to do the gender neutral name, and we should have done that when we got married, but we haven't. It's been a year and a half, but it will happen eventually, surely. So that's sort of what's next. And then I don't know what Juliet exactly has on the table regarding that sort of exploration.
Mm-hmm.
We're just gonna have to see. Like, he's been very chill about the whole thing, really just sort of nudging around, exploring. So just sort of watching that gender bake. It's kind of that's next as well. Everyone else is fairly well established. It's the new interesting thing.
So I have a another question that I just came up with. It feels miscellaneous. Um, so in my recollection, I think you identify as neurodivergent, but I'm not sure if that's how you identify. You're
Oh
nodding.
yeah.
Okay. So do you ever find that you have moments where maybe you're having some executive dysfunction? And does that in any way interact with gender or plurality?
Executive dysfunction. Sometimes it's more just like emotional things. Like if someone's like, if me, it's me. If someone's very dysphoric at the front, um, I can like, I'm pretty good at saying no, you can't come in here. Like a teenager locking my room, you can't come to the front. I'm busy crying, that sort of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I guess the mood disorder thing probably affects more so directly than the executive dysfunction, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe. But like it's also like it's a variable. Like Martin also is not neurodivergent, so
Okay.
like he's just a regular human guy, and
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes when he comes up, he can do the executive dysfunction thing.
Yeah.
So, but again,
Yeah.
he
Like,
doesn't come when he's called.
right. That would be so convenient, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's like if I want to cry and not do the dishes, it would be great if he could come in and do the dishes, and then I could.
Yeah.
But alas,
Yeah, I wonder, are there some members of the system that are more cooperative in terms of switching or sharing tasks, or do you feel like it's not really anyone's in control and it's more who has the strongest will in that moment, or how do you experience that the handoff?
it depends. I tend to get front stuck very easy. There
Mm,
have been times where I've like been out for weeks at a time without
mm-hmm,
leaving. But everyone else is pretty, you know, comes and goes, that sort of thing, depending on like what they want to do or who's, if they want to hang out and do this, if they want to, someone wants to hang out with like our best friend, then they'll be out, that sort of thing. If
mm-hmm,
someone wants to go on a date with a specific person in our partner system, then they're the one who has to come out for that
mm-hmm,
because that's their date. Um, but some people are busy and don't come when they're called,
mm,
and other people are just sort of like Aura doesn't leave. Again, we use the house metaphor a lot. Um, like Aura's doors, like Aura is the attic, like the attic itself. So the attic
mm-hmm.
can't go to the front, if that makes sense. But
Right.
if something's happening in the attic, you'll know. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how that sort of thing works.
Yeah. Near me in the chat says, looking at Martin there is busy and doesn't come when called.
Yeah,
Hmm. I have a vague recollection of Juliet went on a vacation at some point for like a couple weeks or months, and maybe
yeah,
Maddie, you were stuck at front. And you were
yeah,
like, I don't know where Juliet is. Meh.
yeah. Sometimes people leave.
Yeah.
Like no one. That's Martin's magic door. So usually people aren't leaving through that one. Thank God. But for the most part, it's like someone can get lost in the attic. Someone who lives in the attic has built tunnels in our house. They might be in the tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's room for it to be more confusing. Anyone should want. So yeah, I don't know where Juliet went. And Pix doesn't seem inclined to tell me, so that's fine too.
That is fair. I made a pronoun pun.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. It was so silly.
perfect. It's perfect.
Okay, second to last question that I have. This is the final reminder for the chat to get your questions in if you have any you want to ask. If you had to summarize y'all's genders as silly phrases or abstract concepts, who would be what?
Okay. So I mean, Juliet as like pixie gender is kind of sort of established. Um, fairies almost, but definitely more pixies. Fairies are too like legal, mature kind of creatures. Pixies are silly little things. Um,
Mm,
I uh, I tend to call myself a girl with like a U instead of an I, or like a creature, girl creature,
mm-hmm,
just because it's fun. Um, or gender is the Minotaur, and sometimes it is um, a bit of a bowling arena because you roll the ball and you're gonna hit something. You don't know what you're gonna hit, but there'll be a gender in there somewhere. Um, surely. Arn's a regular human guy. Sometimes he's a dog. He's a werewolf, maybe. Who knows? Um, Mimi is Duck Dog. Daffy Duck Dog. That's Daffy Duck Dog. I think that's it of all the people I've mentioned. Michelle's a fox, just like better than Martin. He's just Martin, slightly improved. So just a different canine.
so fun.
I think that.
All right, so let's see. I think I have one more question for you. This is the one I like to ask all of my guests. What would you like to make sure folks know about your perspective on gender and non-binary slash trans issues?
Um, I think that I mean whether or not you like believe all the stuff that's like plural and stuff, I feel like we're just a good example of how you can be trans any way you want. There's lots of things you can do. Like you can start T and you can stop it, and you can do that several times. You can, not be on T and still get fallow. That's a thing. You don't have to be on hormones to get fallow. It's different for meta, but for fallow, you don't need to. Um, like you can change your pronouns willy nilly. You can, decide you want top surgery just so you can get big breast forms. Like there's things you can do, and um, a lot of it, like some of it, like obviously some of it is permanent, but other things are quite variable, like in terms of um, like fat distribution. Like I don't, if I were to start T again, it would change, but then if I took it off, it'd go back to this. So a lot of this stuff is, you know, it's a la carte your gender, and I think that it's good to embrace that sometimes.
A la carte genders. So good.
Pick your own transition, like a transition salad bar.
Totally. Well, this has been such a delight to have you on the show, Maddy, and thanks to you for being here. Thanks to everyone else for letting you be here.
Gossip about.
I hope the rest of the system, if any of those folks decide to watch this later, hello, be kind to Maddy, please. And Martin, come when you're called once in a while, pretty please.
Be great.
we're
Come
just
on,
we're just gonna
man.
make that plea on Maddie's behalf.
There we go. Of
So
course, he's
fun.
not around, but I will tell him. Maybe I'll make Mimi tell him.
There you go. So fun. Um, well, friends, let's just talk a little right quick about some resources available to you before we rate out. Thank you so much for being here, Maddy et al., for sharing so completely about your life. It's been a delight to learn more, and my face hurts from all the smiling and laughing. So it was also entertaining. Mischief complete. We did it. We did the thing. Um, so, friends listening, if you would like to connect with Maddy, you'll probably get a hissing possum emoji. However, um, instead of giving you a bunch of socials and things, we will just say you can interact with Maddy in public channels on the Meowsters Cloud or Discord server, which is my Discord server. So you can find that information in the link tree, and the Twitch chat should be all over the place in the show notes, etc. Or type exclamation point Discord in the Twitch chat to get that anytime we're live. So I guess the one other thing I wanted to mention briefly before we raid over, and please do hang out for the raid. We're going to go make a new friend who is non-binary and plural, according to peer-to-peer.live. The one person who's non-binary and plural and live right now. So Maddy is actually part of the Gender Federation, this new stream team that we're starting up together. I'm going to be one of the squad leaders, and Maddy and the Spire system are going to be one of the squad admins. So we're going to work together. Let me actually do the commands so that you all can get the link tree for Gender Federation. So, Gender Federation is a multi platform stream team of gender diverse content creators whose aim is to fundraise direct mutual aid for gender confirmation surgeries. We've had 3 all hands meetings on Sundays that last for like 3 hours. We've done a lot of meetings. And we just finally got like our org chart figured out, and we've identified some additional founders roles that we need to fill. So if you are interested in getting involved with Gender Federation, please do follow that link tree and go drop some follows on our socials. So when we make a call for further founders and when we finally open up applications for the stream team itself, you all can get involved. Would love to have you along for the fun. So good. Surprise question for Maddy. Is there anything with the Gender Federation you're excited about that you want to tell everyone about?
I mean, I'm excited to help raise money for people. Like, I don't know, like that's just I've had 2 surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were both life changing, and being able to like it really is impossible to describe the difference of what it feels like before and after surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And it always sounds like cheesy saying that,
Mm-hmm.
like your life will never be the same kind of stuff. But like it really does make such a fundamental difference in how you exist that it
Hmm.
really is hard to, quantify, and being able to help anyone get closer to that will be awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for being our guest today.